Hi, welcome to another edition of the Alan Rosenberg Show. So last night I did something I haven't done in probably decades. I watched the Grammy Awards from beginning to end, the 2024 Grammy Awards. Why did I do that? Well, I knew Joni Mitchell was going to be on it, and I thought that would be interesting to see. And I heard Billy Joel was going to be on it, debuting his new song. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe there's going to be some rock and roll in the show. And the Stones were nominated, I think, for Angry. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to watch this thing. So I watched the whole thing, and here's my video review of the 2024 Grammys, the good, the bad, and the very ugly. All right. It was hosted by Trevor Noah. I'm really just not a huge fan of him. I used to watch The Daily Show when he took it over, and it was very him last night. I just kind of find him especially last night. He was so over the top. He just doesn't come off, at least last night, he's not genuine. He was desperately trying to be really funny. I get it. That's his job. But he just tried too hard, and I kind of found him obnoxious. I just didn't enjoy him at all, nor did my wife. One of the first acts was Dua Lipa. I've heard of her before, and so she's like, I guess, a pop performer, and it was that classic over-the-top, massive performance. There was a cage, a million background dances, all the choreography, but she wasn't singing. And nothing pisses me off than lip-syncing and no music. And this is the Grammys. The Grammys is about music, and like your first act is lip-syncing. And I get like violent, man. I was watching my daughter and my wife, and they were like, will you relax? This is just an entertainment show. And I'm like, no, it's not. This is the Grammys. This is the American True Music Award show celebrating music. How could you have a performer who doesn't sing? Oh, did that piss me off. And then Trevor Noah comes out afterwards. Did you see that performance? Did you see that cage? Oh, my God. I'm like, shut up, man. She's not even a singer, Maybe you should nominate her for interpretive dance. Maybe that would be better. So that was not a good way to start. But thankfully, that was pretty much it. After that, everybody, from what I could see, was performing live, as it should be. So I was very grateful about that. Dua Lipa, whoever the hell you are, you should be hanging yourself in shame after watching the rest of that show, and you didn't sing. Luke Combs is like this country guy, and if you know, he has like a number one hit of, a cover version of Tracy Chapman's Fast Car. Now, when that song went to number one, for whatever reason, it just really pissed me off. Why? Because I'm a fan of doing a good cover version when you do it in your style. Man, his cover version is like a note-to-note copy, except replace her voice with his voice, and her version, the original version, is a lot classier and just better. So when that became a huge hit, it really kind of annoyed me for whatever reason. But the other way to look at it as well, he brought it to the attention of today's generation because it's an incredible song. So there is the original album with Fast Car, the Tracy Chapman album that came out in 1988. This album went top 3 for me that year. This is not retrospective. I thought that album was incredible that year. I thought she was a force. She won Best New Artist for me. And Fast Car is a great song on an amazing album. But last night, what a classy move Luke Combs did, okay? He brought her out, and she performed live with him. And it was such a classy move. It was an absolutely incredible performance. They should release that duet version because you could clearly see, even last night, that Tracy Chapman took it to another level that Luke Combs could never do. But my hat off to Luke Combs, because if it wasn't for him, nobody 30 plus years later would even know that song. So that was really great. What was not so great? They were going to have U2 do a nomination, for a category. But instead of doing that, man, they showed U2 live at Las Vegas' Sphere. but it wasn't live. What it was a compilation video of some of the highlights of U2 at the Sphere, a show that I went to see and thought it was quite possibly the greatest entertainment performance I've ever seen in my life. It was incredible. But this was nothing more than a blatant commercial for U2 at the Sphere and a plug for their newest release, the new song Atomic City, which really is not a very good song in my opinion. But it came off like it was live, but it wasn't. It really was just a highlight reel. And then U2 at the Sphere did the nomination. It was lame and a cheap stunt, and I thought it was wrong. Another one that was similar to that, there's this artist, I thought it was SZA. I don't know who this person is, but she's called Scissor, and I guess she had like the most nominations or something like that. But the show went to a commercial break, and it was her, SZA, Scissor, her song. Like the whole commercial was like a 3+ minute version of her song, and then it ended with like this plug, and I was like, again, blatant commercialism that was just wrong. But it wasn't all wrong. There's the singer there, Olivia Rodrigo, who I don't know, but she did a song called Vampire, and she just stood there, and she's very pretty, and she's got a magnificent, almost operatic voice, and she just sang this song. I think it's called Vampire. It was. She had like fake blood on her a little bit. The background had some bleeding from the walls. Awesome. Olivia Rodrigo, I was very impressed. Great song and a great performance. Sometimes things started off good and kind of went, in my opinion, sour. They did the in memoriam, and I love when shows do that because it reminds you of all these people that passed away. And it started with Stevie Wonder doing a video duet with Tony Bennett, who of course is deceased. And they did a version singing together of For Once in My Life. Great. It was really classy. It was really, really well done. And Stevie Wonder, by the way, looked and he sounded fantastic. He was just great. It was genuine and it was classy. Then they brought out Annie Lennox, who was singing Nothing Compares to You, kind of a tribute, I guess, to Sinead O'Connor, and she had like this fake tear on her eye. And I was like, you know what? This is now becoming less of a tribute to the people who passed away and more like, in my opinion, a cheap excuse for an artist to get up there and perform. The Stevie Wonder with Tony Bennett was one thing. The Annie Lennox, she sang it really well, but, I just thought it just didn't feel as genuine. It did have Wendy and Lisa from Prince joining her on playing the music, but it just was less classy. And then from there it went worse because they did a thing on Tina Turner, and the whole tribute to Tina Turner, a huge music legend and one of the greatest stories of music ever, they showed a little picture of her, and then Fantasia, whoever the hell that is, came out with a huge ensemble and did Tina Turner's version of Proud Mary. And I was watching, I'm like, yeah, it's pure entertainment, but you know what? It was a cheap stunt. If you're doing an in memorial, then show Tina Turner doing it. But no, it was just a plug for Fantasia to do her impression of Tina Turner. And the rest of the in memoriam was very quick, basically. It just went from a really classy opening to just more blatant commercialism for the acts that were doing it. Another part that bothered me, they had Jay-Z come out. He won an award called the Dr. Dre Global Impact Award. All right, him and Beyonce are literally the most powerful, richest couple in music, maybe in all of entertainment, right? They're both multi-billionaires. The power they have. I was amazed to see that Jay-Z has 24 Grammy wins, and Beyonce has the most of all time with 32. I couldn't tell you a single Jay-Z song pretty much or a Beyonce song, but the fact that between the two of them they have 56 Grammys, I don't think the Stones, Led Zeppelin, and whoever won one Grammy, right? Or maybe one. 56. So these guys have a lot of power. And anyway, Jay-Z went up there and really started hammering the Grammys by basically saying that his wife, who was in the audience standing up, has all these Grammy wins, but she's never won the biggie, the best album of the year. and that basically insinuating that the Grammy doesn't get it right, the Grammys, and even maybe a bit racist, which I think is, you know, I don't think the Grammys really get it right, but that's not. I mean, they're getting it right with Jay-Z and Beyonce because they both have the two most amount of Grammys ever. She never won the best album of the year, maybe because she never put out the best album of the year. Maybe that just didn't occur to them. But anyway, he kind of bitched about it, and it just kind of seemed wrong. Like the most successful people, even in the Grammys, are bitching that the Grammys doesn't work. Really? I don't know. Meanwhile, their kid, the little daughter, I think she won a Grammy last night. I don't think Zeppelin, the Who, or the Stones ever won a real Grammy, but their kid won a Grammy already. So I don't know. It just kind of bothered me. You know who else bothered the hell out of me? Miley Cyrus. Remember, she was once cute and innocent as Hannah Montana. I get her whole shtick. I remember when she did that Wrecking Ball video and she was naked, and she was always naked and, openly sexual with whatever she wanted to do and trying to shock. Okay, I'm not easily shocked. That's fine. But she won last night 2 huge awards. She won Record of the Year and Pop Solo Performance for this song called Flowers, which she performed. She was so over the top, so obnoxious, so arrogant. And the song is nothing with nothing. It's fine. It's a decent song. It sounds to me, reminded me of Cher. It sounded like a decent Cher song, which is not the highest compliment, really. Her voice is she sounds like she's been smoking 18 packs of cigarettes for the last 40 years. And I don't even know how old she is. I mean, her voice, she's bordering on Marianne Faithfull Latter-day quality of voice right now. She was so obnoxious and so arrogant. And she won as if, and at one point after she won, she's like, "Ooh, I think I forgot to wear my panties." I was like, do you have any class? No. Let's speak about somebody who really disappointed me last night. Taylor Swift. Well, over the last 2 years, I've become a little bit of a Swiftie. Well, Taylor Swift last night, she got called to the stage and she won something, and she went up and she was also so arrogant and so unhumbling, and she was like, "Hey, this is my 14th Grammy." Okay. And in between every other performer who was up there, the camera would show Taylor Swift, instead of sitting watching like just about everybody else, she was standing there dancing and mouthing and singing to all the performers, which is fine if you're a nobody going to a concert. But you know that the camera's going to shoot to you every time you're doing that, which was basically every performance. So every time there's a performer up there, it would go to Taylor Swift singing and dancing to the song. By herself, by the way. I didn't see anybody else. And that's just not, that's arrogance, man. You're taking away from that performer's part in the sun. And there was no need for that, okay? I just thought that was not right. She won the big award for Album of the Year for Midnights, which I didn't have a problem. I thought that was a really great record, even though it feels like it came out 3 years ago. But her final speech, she walks up, and she won the 4th Album of the Year Grammy. Nobody's ever done that. Beyonce never did that, right? So here Taylor Swift got it for the 4th time, the most ever. And Celine Dion did the announcement of it. And Celine Dion's been fighting this terrible illness, and everybody was all emotional that she was there. And, Taylor Swift just basically grabbed it, it seemed, and just grabbed it and went right up to the stage and said, didn't even talk about that award. She was basically saying, "I got a surprise for all my fans around the world. Guess what? This is the biggest surprise in the world. I'm putting out a new album." And they showed the cover, which means instantly it was sent to everybody, worldwide, Instagram, YouTube, everybody. And it was just a blatant plug for her surprise new album that's going to be coming out. It was so classless and so arrogant and so obnoxious. Taylor, you disappointed me. Not that you care. Let's talk about Class C. Joni Mitchell is 80 years old. She almost died a few years ago. I still don't know if she's really able to walk. And she was going to perform last night. And she did. And they came out and she was sitting in this big chair, looked like a queen, you know, an old queen. She's 80 years old. I don't know how much she could move, but she sat in a chair, and she had these live musicians around them playing, like, you know, violins or whatever. And they did the classic Both Sides Now. Her voice obviously is not what it was like. She's 80 years old. She can't really move. There's not a lot of power to it, but she could still, you know, hold a tune. And she just sat there, and it was so genuine, and it was so real, and it was so powerful. And she had a cane, and she would lean into the cane and kind of bang it to keep the rhythm. And she made me cry with tears rolling down my eyes. I'm not exactly sure why. I was so moved by her performance, but I think I was moved that this whole thing kind of was like a microcosm of the world we live in. That we live in such a classless society, that these performers are so arrogant and so in their own little bubble, and really, they ain't all that good. And Joni Mitchell is sitting there showing you what real music and real emotion is, and dignity and class, and how to be humble. And the audience, at least some of the audience, went crazy for Joni Mitchell, and it was worth watching it. And, you know, Taylor Swift and Miley Cyrus came on after Joni Mitchell. You would have thought they would have looked and said, oh, that's how it's done. But they didn't. The only other thing I'll talk about, really, Billy Joel also came out. He's got this new song called Turn the Lights Back On. I found it interesting. There was a video before his performance, and it told the story. You know, Billy hasn't written a song in like 30 years, and he said he hasn't written a song. I figured he has, but I figured they just weren't very good. And it turned out that this new song is actually sort of written by some other guy whose father's in the music business and hooked him up with Billy Joel, and he wrote this and convinced Billy Joel to write it with him. And that guy actually was in the audience watching Billy Joel perform it. And it was a really good performance, I got to say. Billy Joel was excellent. Band, of course, was great. But Billy Joel looked lost there. You could see it on his face. He was like, what am I doing here? And it did. It just didn't seem like Billy Joel and rock and roll mix there. It just doesn't mix. And in fact, after that, he did one more song. I think it was You May Be Right. Fine performance. And it was so obnoxious because if you watch it, the audience, which was all these celebrities who were sitting there with their awards and not their awards, and Meryl Streep and whoever, they were all just socializing and comparing their awards and talking. Nobody was watching Billy Joel. And you could see, like, Billy Joel's like, what am I doing here? It was just kind of strange. And rock is dead. I'm going to do a video rant about how it got to this point, in my opinion. But there wasn't a single rock award that was televised. The Rolling Stones were nominated for Best Rock Performance. They didn't win. It wasn't even televised. They lost to some group called Boy Genius. I don't know what the hell that even is. But the rock didn't exist on the show except Billy Joel, which, like I said, was awkward. Joni Mitchell, I don't know if people would really consider her rock and roll. I certainly do. And U2 was just a poor video. It was an interesting show. I'm glad I watched it. Wasn't all terrible. This was the good, the bad, and the ugly. But if you watched it, I'd love to know what your thoughts are. Send some comments. It was interesting. As always, stay safe, stay healthy. I appreciate you watching my channel. I'd love to know what you think about this. And if you haven't subscribed, hit subscribe so you get these notifications about my videos. And thanks as always. Have a great night.